a possession. Had you swimming inside my affection. Both you, I came.
Hello and welcome back to Coaching to Confidence. You know, as 2023 comes to a close, it is such a great time to reflect on this past year, right? Being grateful for all the successes, the challenges, all the opportunities that were presented to us throughout the entire year. I know you speak on behalf of Chris and Tina and myself, and I just say I'm grateful for each one of you that are joining us on this Coaching to Confidence journey. We're so proud to be surrounded by top committed real estate agents and loan officers from all across North America. And we're also thrilled to have the call parties that have been popping up in offices also across the country. If you've been doing that, send us some photos. We love seeing everybody all getting together with one thing in mind, like how do we become the best we can become moving forward. We have a lot of new folks joining us just before we kick off the new year. So if we haven't met yet, hello, I'm Chris McGatt. I'm the other Chris. I head up the coaching division right here at Leaders Edge Training, and it's such a pleasure to be able to kick off today's session and also be able to help facilitate the Q&A, which is coming up in about 30 minutes or so. And remember, it's important, get your questions in early. The idea really is to give you an opportunity to get the answers to things that may have bubbled up during the week. You just possibly want to get a second opinion about. This is a great time to do that. Just go to the bottom of your screen. You'll see the Zoom Q&A right there. Type your question in. I would encourage you to start putting them in right now. We want to try and get to as many questions as we can today, and it's always best to get your question teed up early on in the Q&A. Now, listen, as always, we stream live every single week. We want to make sure we're covering topics that are both timely and relevant. And each week we focus on one of 4 different areas. We always talk about either lead generation, building your client base. We want to make sure we're touching on sales skills, giving you really meaningful ways to be able to close more transactions. And then also, we got to make sure we're staying inspired, right, and motivated during this amazing time of change. And the 4th thing that we look at every single month is we look at ways of being able to work smarter, right? Now, don't work harder. There's got to be a better way. Now, last week, we explored the 7 rules of behavioral change. You've heard it a million times. If you continue to do what you've always done, then you can only expect to get what you've always gotten before. And with many markets slowing down this coming year kind of season and into the next year, if you don't do something different, you're actually going to expect to do less. Now, Chris provided some great insight on proven ways to create positive change in your business and in your future. And that brings us to this week. This week's topic, which is New Year's resolutions. So we're focusing on the structure of your business this week. Now, we're in the final week of 2023, and hopefully you're taking some time off to be with family and friends. This is also a week that, quite frankly, most of us are thinking about what we really want to get out of life in 2024. And we commit to these things called New Year's resolutions. Now, typically, less than half of the people that make a New Year's resolution actually achieve that result. So today, Chris is going to share us some strategies on how to make sure that isn't the case for us, that we do reach our goal and our strategies for 2024. So let's think differently. Let's focus on where we're going to go in the future, and let's get started. Please help me welcome nationally recognized real estate expert, Chris Leder. Hello, Chris. Great to see you.
Hello, Chris. Good to see you. Happy holidays, and we're going to have a great 2024. Today's Boxing Day in Canada. Kind of a Canadian thing. This is traditionally when we take back all the sweaters that were too small to all of the retailers, and we take back our gifts. So that's sort of what the Canadian Boxing Day thing is all about. But if you're joining us from the West Coast, good morning. If you're joining us from the East Coast, good afternoon, and happy holidays to everybody else in between. Got a great session for you today. And, you know, as the year winds down and we start to look at what was, where we are, where we're going, all of that stuff, a little bit of a crystal ball. Going into 2024, I think that we've got 2 wild cards in our environment that could affect our real estate business this year. The first one is there are some wars going on globally. And honestly, I just wish people would stop fighting with each other. It's not good for business, and I'm sure it's not good for their overall, their way of life. But I'd like to stop. The second thing is the election. Now, you know, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm a Canadian, but that federal election, the presidential election, will take oxygen out of the room. So I want you to be thoughtful. Those are a couple of things that are going to affect us. But on the other hand, Chris, I think 2024 is going to be a banner year, and I got some data to kind of for my foundation on this. But there are going to be things to really do great in 2024. You're going to have to be thoughtful about some of the changes that are taking place, so that you are positioned as a professional in our industry to capitalize on the great real estate market that's coming. So where am I going with this? Well, I'm always reading about what's happening and how it's going to affect us in the business. And I'm trying to figure out where we're going with our market. So I thought I would take a different approach in terms of trying to figure out the real estate market. You see, I see everything through my eyes as a real estate professional. But I went to my stockbroker and I said, I want you to analyze one of my stocks that I always keep my eye on in the real estate space. And I want your analysts to tell me what you think is going to happen to the stock value. So the company I'm looking at we know it as Anywhere. You might have known it as Realogy or NRT in a different world. But going back 3 weeks ago, the Anywhere stock, which is Coldwell Banker, Century 21, Better Homes and Gardens, Sotheby's, Corcoran, probably a few others that I'm missing. Their stock was trading at $4 and about 80 cents 3 weeks ago. It's trading right now at $7.68. That's almost a doubling of value. But when last week I gave the company to my stockbroker, and their analyst went and looked at it. They said current market value on that stock. Now, this is somebody that's not in the real estate space. All they're doing is looking at the company itself. They said the present value on that, and I've got a report on it, is $14.65. That means if you had bought that stock 3 weeks ago, you would have literally probably tripled your money. And if you were to buy it today, and I'm not saying it's going to go up, and I'm not saying my analysts are right, and I'm not saying stuff doesn't happen between now and then, but what they're saying is they expect the real estate market to get a lot better. Okay, that's the takeaway here. I'm not telling you to go buy stock. I'm telling you to get prepared for a tremendous opportunity. Rates are forecasted to go down, and the stock analysts are forecasting that into a positive effect. We're going to have a seller's market again. And I'm going to say again, because some of you have never actually left a seller's market, but we're going to have inventory shortages. Rates go down. The economy's strong south of the border. You guys are in great shape. The unemployment levels are low. There's lots of job opportunities. This is going to be a very good economy. And if you've been watching any of the analysts, they're talking about a soft landing this year. So that means we're going to be in good shape. Now, here are some of the things that I think you need to have on your radar that could affect your business, our business, the real estate business, the bombshell lawsuits. And I know we've been talking about that. But if you're going to be successful this year, you're going to need listings. Okay? We're going to talk in a minute about going out and getting seller listings and why that's so important. But when you have those properties listed, people are going to inquire about wanting to buy them. And you need to be prepared for that conversation today. What does that look like? How will you be working with your buyers in 2024? What will that relationship look like? What will your program be when you sit down with a potential buyer prospect? And what processes and steps will be laid out in that conversation so they understand why they would want to commit to you? So these are the changes that are afoot right now. You have the opportunity, you have the time at this moment to prepare for what's coming. Now, years ago, and I'll give you a little sidebar, as a young speaker learning my craft and getting out in front of an audience, I was one of the people on the dance card this particular day, but the keynote was a fellow by the name of Zig Ziglar. Now, Ziglar was old and I was young, and I went up to Mr. Ziglar behind the stage and before everybody was going on, and I said, as a young speaker, Mr. Ziglar, could you give me a couple of words of advice? And he looked at me and he talked for a minute, but he said, let me tell you what you need to do. Prepare. That's what I'm telling you right now. The advice Ziglar gave me was preparation and hard work are where the crossroads of success meet. What I'm telling you is you need to be prepared for the market that's coming and the changes that are necessary. Buyers' commissions and fee for service are going to be part of this conversation. What will you be doing and what will you expect to be compensated? And you're going to need to be able to articulate that. You're going to need a buyer's listing presentation, just like we did with seller presentations. And I'll bet the vast majority of people in the industry haven't got one or they haven't organized it. The next thing you're going to have to get good at is seller presentations and explaining how your fees work, what you're being compensated for, and would the seller be interested in contributing to the buyer's agent's commission to help make it easier for people to buy their house? That contribution, what will the seller's contribution be, if any at all? And then the next item I have on my list for you guys, and I know you're thinking, oh my God, there's so much stuff here, I got to get organized for 2024. But you're going to need to start looking at how to apply artificial intelligence, AI, to your business. And it's got to be something more than just writing property descriptions or writing a just listed card. So take time to investigate how you're going to be deploying AI, because it's going to take up a bigger piece of our business. It's going to create greater efficiencies, it's going to make you more effective, and it's going to give you that standout activity that you're going to separate you from the rest of the industry. Now, this is also going to lead us to some other interesting business models. We've got buyers out there thinking that they can buy homes without agents. We got maybe some sellers thinking that they're going to sell without agents. We're going to have to be better at articulating our value proposition, which means we're going to be better agents, which means we're going to deliver a better experience. All of that is good for the people that are willing to muscle up a little bit and get the job done. But there will be some alternative business models. And I think we could probably see somebody again trying to do some sort of limited service or no service model where the public is doing it direct, like a help you sell or some sort of open door program, something like that again. So I just need you to be prepared for some of the changes. Don't get thrown off guard. Expect that these things are going to come. So I've got some things for you to focus on in 2024, and then we'll get into today's material. You want to think about your processes. How are you going to do things, and your communication to support that on both sides of the transaction. Second one I have for you is customer service is going to win the battle against property tech and limited service brokerages. So you've got to work on relationships, because if we don't have a relationship, we have a transaction, and that's where technology replaces us. It's about communicating with people and building those relationships. Third one I have is you got to get involved in AI more than you're doing now. The fourth one is you got to work on building relationships with your colleagues and managers. In the last 2 weeks, I have met with probably 30 different office managers, and I've done 3 office visits, actually 4 office visits. I've done 4 office visits. And one of the common themes in everybody's office is real estate salespeople aren't using the bricks and mortar space as frequently or at all, at least the way they used to in a different market. And I'm telling you, we need to get back into our buildings again. We need to get back around the other agents. We need to have the supervision of our leadership. It's easy for you to stay home, but you're going to be more effective if you get together as a group and start working. We got to get out and socialize in the community, and we're going to make that part of our business model. And I want you to rethink your marketing strategies for 2024 so that we got to be more thoughtful about how we're going to invest our money. So those are some tips I had for 2024. But I want to get into today's material and talking about New Year's resolutions and how to maintain those resolutions. Now, arguably, some of the tips I just gave you, you could have said those are some of my New Year's resolutions. And but it's one thing to identify a resolution. It's another thing to manage the commitment all the way across the finish line. So this week is a great chance for you to take a step back and really think about 2024. If you could have the perfect year, what would it be? What would it be personally, professionally, financially? What would all of the things you would love to accomplish? What are those priorities? This is your time to take that moment when the world is a little quieter during the 25th and the 1st. And not to say that you still can't sell a house this week. I know 4 houses are going to be sold this week. But take some time to think about what this next year is all about. So let me give you an example and I did a little homework on this, what the top 10 resolutions are for most people across the continent. Every year, millions of people make these resolutions. Chances are that your list is incorporated inside this list. Number 1 on everybody's list is to do more exercise, and that includes me. The second one is to eat healthier. Especially coming off the holidays, we've all kind of chubbed up and had lots to eat. And in the process, now we're rethinking our diet. So losing weight. And yes, that's one of my goals this year. When I finished up my travel schedule last year, I was just shy of 200 pounds. I'm down to 178, and I'd like to get to 168. That's sort of my goal for this year. So keep an eye on me and see if I can hold me accountable. A lot of people would like to get better organized. Everything from their personal life to their closets, to their house, to their garage, even their business office and their computer and everything. So, getting things organized, learning a new skill or a hobby and incorporating that into your personal life, saving some more money and investing wisely towards our retirement plans. Quitting smoking. Well, I'm surprised that one still exists on anybody's list. I'm not sure if I even know anybody that smokes anymore. So, we've obviously done a good job with that resolution, spending more time with friends. We could all spend some more time with friends, travel more for some of you, and certainly read more would be on my list, to spend more time reading. But take a look at the list, and that'll give you an example of what most people have, some 2, 3, 4 of these items on their list this year. And I bet you do as well. So let's figure out what our goals are and our targets. Now, we also have to adopt a holistic approach when we go through this. When you make your resolutions for 24, it can't all be about work. Because if you do, you're going to do it at the expense of other parts of your life. The true goal must be, most people's true goal is about living a fulfilled life. And that's a balanced life. That's a life where you feel that you have relationships, but you are challenged with work. You feel that you're making good money, but you're wisely investing that money for tomorrow. These are all of the attributes that we build into that fulfilling life. Now, you need to set goals in all areas of your life to be truly happy. I mean, can you imagine being great in business but having poor health? Or can you imagine being in such great health, but it affects the amount of dollars that you're generating? So these are all the challenges we run into when we get distracted. Now, achieving your resolutions, you will be successful. A recent study, for instance, we were looking at by the Journal of Clinical Psychology said that only 46% of people, and I think that's still pretty good, who make a resolution are successful. Versus, so that's like 1 out of every 2 people. Think of it that way. Versus the people that have goals but don't actually make resolutions, what we find is that only 4% are successful. So what does that really mean? If you create goals, you set resolutions, you create your list, and you work on it, you've got a 50% chance of achieving your goal. On the other hand, if you don't set those resolutions, but you got kind of a loosey-goosey idea of what you want to accomplish, you got a 1 in 25% chance that you're going to accomplish that goal. So the number is significantly more successful. It's like 1 out of 2 versus 1 out of 25. Now, achieving your resolutions, what should you take from the study? It is important to set New Year's Eve resolutions. So I challenge all of you to get your little black book out. 2024, your top 10 things, break it into categories, but let's figure out what you want to get done. You may only achieve them 46% of the time. That's 1 out of every 2, but that is a whole lot better than 4 out of 100. Think of it that way. So from that perspective, it makes way more sense to get serious about your goals and attach resolutions to them. You're resolved to achieving those goals. Now, 5 suggestions to help you achieve your New Year's resolutions. First one is complete the goal setting tool, which will be attached to your email this afternoon that we're going to send you to today's session, link to today's session. It will force you to think about your goals in all the different areas of your life. It's a great resource. I introduced it to most of you during the Leaders Program, but the vast majority of people, it was a homework exercise, didn't actually do it. The timing couldn't be better for you now to revisit that particular tool and break out the categories of your life to figure out what are priorities in each of those categories so that you can work through those objectives and get the outcome you're looking for. The second suggestion I have for you is to take your goals and prioritize them. Which goals motivate you the most? What are you most excited about? Your goals got to be important to you, not to others. or they won't inspire you. And I got to tell you, inspiration when it comes to goals is important, because there are times we have to participate in activities we don't necessarily want to or we're not excited about. But remember, if the goal is more important than the activity, then you're going to push yourself through the uncomfortable exercise of whatever it is. But if your goal's not powerful, you're not going to force yourself. You'll come up with excuses. So my suggestion is not to overwhelm yourself. Pick one or two goals to start with. You can't do everything at once. Otherwise, you will find it debilitating, literally emotionally paralyzing, and you won't do the stuff you should. Now, the third item I have for you is to take your goal that you want to achieve by the end of the year and break it into bite-sized pieces. Like, let me give you an example. Let's say your goal was to lose 30 pounds in 2024. Now, that's a lot of weight, and it would take a commitment on your part. And that commitment and that objective, that goal needs to be broken down into bite-sized pieces in terms of activities that you participate in consistently, and over time, you're going to see changes take place. Like, for instance, it starts with doing a 30-minute walk every day. Now, the question is, how would you feel? And I'm only using this as an example. How would you feel if you were 30 pounds lighter by the end of next year? Well, that you can't fast forward to the end of next year. We got to start in January. So we start in little ways. We start with that walk. Then we start planning our morning breakfast, for instance. Breakfast and lunch are going to be healthy. They're going to be portion controls. They're going to be not that quick cheeseburger or sub on our way to the next appointment, but something healthy, and we're going to maintain that commitment. Now, I'll tell you where that maintenance really starts to kick in and you feel good, when you start to see changes take place. Daily little wins have a compounding effect that ultimately motivate us over time. Now, when you think about this, and I use this as a very simple strategy, but the same can be applied to our business and our finances. We break down our goal into bite-sized pieces in terms of activities, and those activities need to be prioritized, and they have to live in our schedule every day. Now, you got to know something. I don't expect you to be perfect. I expect you to have progress. Do I expect there will be days when you don't maybe eat a healthy lunch, or maybe you skipped breakfast, or maybe you didn't get your 30-minute walk in? Forgive yourself and get back on track. We often feel emotionally frustrated when we don't maintain our consistency, and that almost gives us permission to stop. Don't do that. Just get back on and start again. And number 4 on my list was share your resolution and look to help acquire your resolve by the people around you that love you, care for you, and want you to be successful. If you are committed to doing something, tell your friends and family about it, because your friends and family will support you in the process. And you personally are internally, if you're reminding yourself of what your goal was, and you're reminding your friends and family what your goal was, whatever it is, in whatever category, you're more likely to get back on track when you get off track, because you have made a public statement and you are committed to it. Making that public announcement adds a sense of guilt. I understand, but that guilt, if it's properly channeled, can be a very powerful emotion to get you to be better than you are. If you don't, otherwise, if you ignore this stuff, you're going to miss the opportunity. Hey, you know what? You said you were going to walk every day for 30 minutes. You didn't walk today. Own it. Take responsibility for it. Give yourself permission to be a human, and get on your 30-minute walk tomorrow. Nobody is perfect. We're looking for progress, but I'll tell you this, you keep this up, you eat healthy 2 out of 3 meals, and you get up for a little exercise every day, and I promise you, within 12 months, you will have dropped the weight. Now, the same is true for your business. I don't care if it's marketing, if it's farming, if it's building your sphere, it's building out your CRM, if it's artificial intelligence. It's all about little bite-sized pieces. Now, our goals often give us the jet fuel we need to push through the activities we're initially not comfortable with. And we need a constant reminder why we're working, why we're so focused, why we're bringing this level of discipline. That's where the vision board comes in. The law of attraction in the movie The Secret. They tell us that if you look at something long enough, The law of attraction says it just shows up. We either draw it into our life or it draws us into it. But when we're constantly looking at our goals, it reminds us of what's important and that we have to get back on track, and we have to make our calls, we have to make our contacts, we have to follow up and follow through to get the job done. It could be as simple as being pleasantly reminded to ask for the commitment when you meet with a buyer. I've seen people get to the end of the presentation and then not ask for the order. Maybe that vision board is that constant reminder we need to ask for the order. And it could be that simple, small adjustment in your communication strategy that increases your conversion rate significantly. But we have to be pushed to do that. Now, if you say yes to these things, whatever it is, in terms of getting in shape, working on our business, saving for our finances, whatever it is, what are you going to end up saying no to? Because we can't add more stuff to an already busy calendar. Then you can be assured that nothing is going to get done. It's all about making choices. You can't do everything. And I know some of you try. Every time you add something new to your busy life, you got to be able to let go of something else. And this is the hard part. Whenever you say yes to a new activity, you've got to be prepared to say no to an old one, another activity. So what we're looking to do is replace the things that aren't working or as effective as they should be and start to fill in activities and strategies that are. It's about choices. What can you eliminate? Take a hard look at how you spend your time. Do that time study that we talked to you about. Take a look at what you're doing and take a look at the activities that need to be eliminated or reduced from your schedule. And there's lots of things, both professionally and personally. I talk to you guys, you immediately think professional. But I'll bet you there's even things we can do personally to make things a little bit easier. The other thing I find with a lot of real estate people is they've got into the habit of creating some systems and they have control issues. Most successful people have these control issues. It's like they think that it's easier for them to do it than it is to take time to explain it to somebody else and get them to do it. It's like they won't invest the front end time so that they can capitalize on the back end. And it's like they just feel like they've got to do everything. They got to have their hands on everything. They can't let go of things and allow other people to grow. Let me put it to you this way. You can't make a 6 or 7 figure income doing $20 an hour work. You've got to find ways to delegate out some of those low-level tasks to other people. You could even look at streamlining some of your personal life. We often do things out of a sense of obligation or routine instead of maybe looking for more effective ways to do stuff. Like you may very well have positioned yourself every Thursday night as grocery night. So you spend time walking around the grocery store, picking up paper towel and toilet paper and Windex. But I don't know if that's necessarily the best use of your time. A lot of that can be ordered online today and delivered right to your house, giving you more time to do other things. For some of you, you cut your grass or you snowplow your driveway. Again, we should be hiring those services out to people. And the same with doing your house cleaning. Hire somebody to do that. All of this is about how much are you worth versus hiring somebody else. You see, if you're doing that work, you're not doing the other work of real estate. And it's the other work of real estate that pays $200, $300, $400, $500, $1,000 an hour, whatever it is you get paid. But if you're doing the $20 an hour work, what a waste of your time as a professional. Let's get all that other stuff done by other people. Your gardening, your grass, your snow removal, cleaning the house, ordering your groceries online. There's a lot of things you can do to simplify your life and find yourself some more time. We want to learn to qualify our clients quickly. You need to get busy this year finding new sellers, people who want to sell their home. And in the process, those sellers are going to attract buyers. You got to be able to ask the qualifying questions nicely, the tough questions, but you got to know, are you working with real people? They got to be committed, not curious. They got to be wanting to buy a house and willing to sit down with you as a buyer's representative, let's say, so they understand your program, your services, and what the commitment and the fee looks like. And you got to get good at communicating this. Get busy. When you have lots of clients and you are really busy, you get to be selective. The natural selection process kicks in when you got too much work. And that means you start to ask the tough questions. Even if I taught you to ask the tough questions, if you didn't have any clients, you'd chase whatever opportunity. But if I load up your calendar with so many opportunities and you are so freaking busy, when somebody says, yeah, well, I'm not sure, you're going to be more selective about who you give that time to than to chase down things that are people who are not really qualified. So get busy and you get to choose the quality of your clients. You want to choose the people you keep company with carefully. My friend from South Carolina says, y'all smell like what you rub up against. Now, I say that comically, but you know that if you hang out with the Eagles, you're going to be successful. And if you hang out with the Ducks, you're going to be a loser. I would create a mastermind in your office of like-minded people who are really committed to taking their business to the next level, getting together once a week to strategize on what's working and what's going on in the marketplace. I wouldn't do it by Zoom. I would do it live. That's how real relationships are made. I would do it in the office. And you need to be prepared. There will be people who say they want to be involved. We can't maintain that commitment. That's normal with a mastermind. We just replace them with people who will. So that brings us up to this week's assignment. And you guys got a lot of information in the last 25 minutes. I was going 90 miles an hour here for you. Complete the goal setting tool that we're going to send you today. Pick one or two goals to start on based on what motivates you. What do you really want to get done this year? And then give us a little bit of our poll. If you enjoyed today's session, we would appreciate giving us a review, please. And I have a request to ask. If you have friends in real estate in any of the companies, would you please send out a link to our Coaching to Confidence? Let's make this grow so that the people that you're negotiating with are professionals. And that happens by educating everybody on how to conduct our business. When you're ready, we have an elite team of one-on-one coaches. And this is the time of year you should be having a conversation with us. You may decide this isn't the right time for you to make that investment. But if you were ever going to kick it into gear, January's the time to do it. Spend a few minutes, meet with our Melanie at our office, have a discussion what it's all about, what you should expect, and even do some due diligence. Talk to some of the people we coach if you want. We can prove the case why you should be with us. I think that brings us up to our Q&A and brings me back to the other Chris, and it is I'm happy to see you, buddy.
Hey, Chris, how are you? Thank you for the great content. You know, it's so important to do what you just said, which is take the time to sharpen the saw, right? Take the time to breathe a few minutes and really look at your business strategically, look at your life strategically. Provide yourself that permission to take the time right now to really look at what you want to see change in 2024. Because I think many of us feel like, oh, it's a new year, it's a new opportunity. It's just going to happen magically. Well, it doesn't. You said it. 1 out of 25 is not, those aren't the odds I'm looking for. It's really about being thoughtful. It's about being purposeful, but it's also about taking the time to do it. And that's why today's session is so important. Now, we are now up against the time of the program that gives you the opportunity to find out and explore questions you might have about your business, about your future, about your strategy. So don't be shy. Get your questions in. Now is a great time to do that. I want to first and foremost say, Jasmine, thank you. I see it just came in. I'm going to start with you because you're the last one in. Jasmine says, Chris, any suggestions on how to get better with communication and getting better with being able to use the right words to have a higher close ratio? What a great goal. What a great target for 2024, Jasmine.
Well, Jasmine, I've got about 3 things I think that come to my mind right off the bat. The first one is you need to internalize your words. So that means you want to listen to your scripts and your talk tracks, your dialogues. For instance, the Leaders Program is filled with all kinds of dialogues in your downloads. That's going to help you build some, the words. It's going to give you that confidence. So when the question comes up, you're not going to feel like you got caught off balance. Number one. I think that having those words will give you the confidence that you're looking for. The second thing, Jasmine, is I'm going to recommend that when we're talking to people, we're watching people. And what I find today is that we're so focused on our computer that we're missing the communication that's taking place in front of us. And it's been told, I've read recently, 92% of communication is nonverbal. So, and I'm a big advocate for having a great presentation, Jasmine, but you need to know your presentation well enough that you can look at the slide, you can communicate whatever you want to in your words from the slide, but then you need to pivot and you need to look at the client so that you can see what they're saying to you. Now, Jasmine, if you stay in the moment, you stay focused, you push all of the other distractions out, I think you're going to find the answers to the questions, and the communications that you're looking for have always been there. It's just that we're so distracted with so many things going on that we don't hear the question, we don't see the response, we don't see the facial expressions and the body language to support what's going on. So listen to your dialogues, prepare your talk tracks for your presentations, and be present. And if you can be present, you're going to have a better conversion rate. And if you forget to close, Jasmine, put a little elastic band on your wrist. And at the end of the presentation, keep snapping it to remind yourself that I got to ask, hey, can I just hand you a pen and can we get that sign up and get started? All right.
Excellent. Next question comes in from Cheryl in Victoria. She says, the sentiment among agents here in Victoria is that 2024 will be a seller's market. Could you weigh in on your thoughts, your crystal ball?
Markets tend to be, can be affected locally. Victoria, being the island off the coast of British Columbia, the city off the coast of British Columbia on Vancouver Island. I'm not specific to your real estate market without doing any research, but talking in general terms across the board, as interest rates go down, more people are in a position to entertain buying a house again. I think governments on both sides of the border are focused on getting new home construction up and going, so we should see some home starts. But setting all of that aside, I think that we have an inventory shortage presently that puts the sellers in control of the conversation. And as rates go down, that shortage becomes more acute. So I think if you're going to have a successful year, you got to go out and get seller listings this year and be prepared. It's going to be busy for the agents that are carrying the inventory. The other thing I would say about the economy is that the US economy generally is doing better than the Canadian economy. I expect the Americans will stick that soft landing they've been talking about from the Fed. We're going to have a nice, solid, good economy down south of the border. On the other hand, the Canadian economy isn't as solid, so I think it's going to be a little choppier and a little bumpier. But yeah, and so I would say that all in all, inventory levels are down. They will continue to stay down, and interest rates will go down. That will bring more buyers into the market. So that's basically the essence of what I'm saying there. And to support that, think about the stock value of what people are looking at in the stock market. They're obviously thinking that real estate's going to get busy again because the stock price is going up on most of the real estate companies on the stock exchange.
Great indicator. You're exactly right. Gary, thank you for your question. Gary says, with the current state of the economy, how hard would you still push for a full commission? Gary, I'm going to use the word full commission versus a percentage just so we can keep it good across the board.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we are not advocating for a commission rate. You can choose whatever commission rate. That conversation about commissions is totally negotiable between you and your clients, both on buyer and the seller side of the transaction.
Thank you, Chris.
I'm trying to make sure we got our backside covered on this because
absolutely.
Right? So I just want you to do whatever you want with commissions and work out your own deal. If it was me going in, I would build a case around the quality of my work, the attention to detail, the fact that I'm not carrying 100 listings. I personally would be carrying whatever my number is, based on what I felt confident and comfortable with. I would have a quality experience, quality communication strategy so that they were kept up to speed and I was answering questions before they were asking. I would make sure I was using the very best marketing. I was using the latest technology. Drones, videography, photography, staging, twilight shots. I mean, I'd be doing it all in building a case based on quality. Now, I know there will be lots of business that will be sold at a different rate than the one I would personally be charging, but mine is based on my business model and the quality of my model. And then I would be able to sit down with somebody and say, yeah, this one, they do this and I do that. And then you have to decide, Mr. Buyer or seller, which type of salesperson you would be most comfortable with. That's why, Chris, I go back to talking about relationships. And if we're not careful and if we move towards transactional, your income per transaction is going to go down. It's going to be a matter of digits, basically, is what we're talking about, instead of actual people. So build relationships, deliver quality in everything you do, and you'll have tons of clients. So I don't think, whatever your business model is, it shouldn't be challenged based on the fees. It should be always about, how do I elevate the experience to a different level?
It's a great call out. I was reading an article a couple of days ago, Chris, and they were talking about how the grocery chain Whole Foods has had a record year this past year. And you look at shopping at Whole Foods versus Safeway, two very great stores and very successful businesses, but they attract different kinds of buyers. And there is a reason why there's a reason why people go to Whole Foods. There's a reason why they may buy a Mercedes or a Lexus over another brand. There's a reason why people stay at maybe an upper end hotel versus a lower end hotel. And it doesn't make it right or wrong. It just makes it, meaning it's so important to have the right mindset. And you just talked a bit about being proud of who you are, being proud of what you do, being really clear about what you offer, your customer service. Like, we all need to take stock in the hard work that we do, the intention that we have, the quality that we put forth. You're not like everyone else. You're on this call. A lot of people aren't on this call. There's a reason why you're on this call. Take stock in that, be proud of what you're doing, and recognize that people will pay for a fair service, and you're providing a fair service. Don't ever be shy. Don't ever be apologetic about the rates you charge. So thank you, Chris. That was a really important topic. And thank you, Gary, for bringing up the question. Throw some more questions in. We'd love to see them. I've got one here, Chris, that just came in. Patricia says, I worked hard in 2023, but a lot of my clients didn't move forward with a purchase. It seems like a waste of time. I didn't come close to my 2023 goal. I don't want to repeat that in 2024. What suggestions do you have for me? Thank you, Patricia.
First of all, I think buying a house is a big decision. And I think it's fair for people from time to time to say, you know what, we're going to hit the pause button. We're going to put the brakes on. Now, that doesn't mean for the rest of their life, Patricia, they're never going to buy a house. They're going to buy a house. So my first suggestion is, you've got to keep that list warm, and you got to be patient with people. As much as I know you want to put another deal on the board this week, and everybody does, at the same time, the conversations we're having right now might be the deal on the board in June instead of January. And real estate has got it's got kind of a long sales curve sometimes. I can tell you, I've had clients for up to 2 and 3 years before I finally got them. And that doesn't mean I was out showing them homes every weekend. It meant that I was staying in touch. They had hit the pause button for a few months. They kind of thought maybe they're going to reno their house a little bit, whatever it was. And, I just kept keeping that relationship alive, and they come around, and eventually we get that sign up. So my first suggestion is, go back and take a look at everybody you had conversations with last year. Keep in mind, most states, provinces, and countries, if you haven't talked to somebody in 18 months, they can no longer be considered a client, even if you sold them a home. So you've got to talk to people on a regular basis to maintain the relationship and stay compliant from, say, the do not call list, for instance. You want to maintain your compliance, and you want permission-based marketing. So when somebody says, I'm not going to pull the trigger right now, or I'm not going to buy a house, what I want you to do, Patricia, is say, that's fine. With your permission, I'd like to stay in touch. Often we find life changes, and when it does, I'd like to be there to help you should you decide you want to move forward with this. But you'll never know if that's going to be a decision unless I keep you informed. So if it's okay with you, I'll send you stuff and I'll reach out from time to time to see if anything's changed your plans. So that would be my first suggestion. Let's not think that those people aren't going to buy a house, number one. Number two, moving forward, I think it's really important in 2024 that you get better, and I'm using this as an example, at qualifying your clients. A couple of simple qualifying questions might be, if you were sitting with a buyer doing a buyer presentation, looking to get a commitment and understand their emotional readiness to make this purchase, what I might say to that buyer is, if we saw let's pretend We go out this afternoon and we're looking at houses. If we saw the right house today, would you be ready to buy it today? And if they're going to say, no, 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 way too fast. We are just initially getting started. This could take 6 months or a year before we would be comfortable. All right. So now you have a sense of what you're working with. Does that mean we throw them overboard? Absolutely not. We shuffle our program. And I'll tell you what I've often done with those people, Patricia. When I don't have somebody to show houses to, and I've got a kind of a gap in my calendar, I'll line up a few of those properties and see if I can get them out to go have a look. Even though they might not be buying, you'd be surprised when you get somebody across the threshold at something more than once. They said, we weren't going to do this, but I don't think we can afford to miss this opportunity. So I've always kind of kept them alive. Whenever I had an opportunity, I filled in time and I stayed in touch. The second thing I want you to do, Patricia, is when you're on a seller's appointment with people, you need to ask the question, if we could agree on the price tonight or my fee for service, whatever your closing question is, would you be ready to get started tonight? And again, you're qualifying somebody as to their emotional readiness. So before we even talk buyers, what I like to do is end up the seller listing presentation. And before we go to price, my question always is, and I split the presentation in half at that point. Based on everything I showed you up to this point, if we could agree on the price, and we haven't even looked at price yet, but if we could, would you be ready to list with me? And that's that qualifying question, Patricia, that they're going to say, no, we're not signing anything tonight, or yeah, if we can agree on price, I'm ready to go. So you'll know where they stand, and that will help you understand who they're working with. So ask the questions, ask them politely. And anybody that's not hot, but is still warm, let's keep them on a B list and keep percolating that list till we bring it along. And yeah. All right.
Chris, I love it. The words that work. This will be a session that will be watched by people over and over again, because it's capturing those words that work that are so valuable. So thank you for sharing those. Betty just chimed in and said, there are a lot of things I would like to accomplish, but I honestly don't have time. Suggestions, question marks, maybe a time management angle for Betty.
Okay. So when we don't have time, Betty, what I'd like to do is kind of take a look at a typical work week, let's say in November before we hit the holiday season. Take a look at your calendar, your schedule, your calendar, your Outlook calendar. And the first question I would ask you is, can you tell me where all the time went? And I can assure you that there is vast majority of gaps in your calendar. Not to say that you're not a busy person. I expect you are. But if I was looking at most people and did a time study, we went backwards and looked, they don't know where their time went. Moving forwards, Betty, into January, help you with organizing your stuff. There's a few things I would do. The first one I would do is I would keep a record for the first couple of weeks, every 15 minutes, 30 tops. What activity are you participating in? And then once we've analyzed our activities, what you'll find, Betty, is that a vast majority of our activities are spent on low priority stuff that we could either delegate or they shouldn't be on our list in the first place. And I can't speak to the specifics of you, Betty. I haven't done a time study on you. I'm talking in general terms, and you may take exception to what I'm saying. And you may say, no, that's not me. But I would bet that there are a lot of things you're doing that you probably don't need to do. Or there are things you're doing that from a priority perspective don't raise to the level of attention you're giving them. On the other hand, I would bet there are certain activities that would generate opportunities that are living on the bottom end of the list, not on the top end of the list. So after we've done a time study and you can't find out where the time went, then what I would like you to do is print an Outlook calendar for the next week or two. And then I want you to make a list of all of the activities that you want to get done. Okay? Then I want you to pull them from that list and I want you to organize them into that calendar. This would be the best time to do this activity. Like for instance, paperwork is probably better at 9 o'clock than calling your sphere of influence at 9 a.m. So you know that your sphere is probably better at 6. Your organization structure, administration is better at 9 a.m. All I'm saying, Betty, is there's probably times if we start to look at our calendar that you can get more done. Now the question is, Betty, can you maintain that schedule? And I want you to know that, like I said earlier on today, we're not perfect. We're looking for progress, not perfection. Got to give yourself permission for falling down, but you got to get back up soon and get back on the calendar again and organize those priorities. So I would say, Betty, I realize you're really busy between personal commitments, business commitments, family, friends, and all the things we got going on. Let's organize, let's put it in the calendar, and let's keep it a little tighter. Now, Won't be perfect by the end of the week, but I'll bet you're going to have a lot more done than if you hadn't gone through this exercise. The next thing that happens, Betty, is that schedule becomes a routine. Those routines are the ingredients that change our character. And how do we morph into being and achieving and accomplishing the things we want? It all starts with the first step of understanding where I'm at, the second step of what needs to change, and the next piece is holding yourself accountable and rebalancing that at the end of every week. Yeah. Betty, one other little tip I learned from Bob Burns, the president of a very large real estate company in Seattle and Portland, is that he does his calendar schedule every Sunday afternoon for the upcoming week. And you're going to think Sunday's family time. Well, it is for Bob too. He's got a couple of kids and a partner, a wife. But Bob knows that if he's going to make the most of the upcoming week, he's got to prioritize the activities and he's got to make sure he's working on the right stuff. He does that every Sunday. Now, by Friday, I can bet that it wasn't how he planned it, and stuff pops up when you're running a company with 1,300 salespeople. But at the same time, he's getting a lot more done because he's thoughtful. So take a page out of a president's handbook on how to get the most out of a week. Think if you're busy, how would you be if you had 1,300 people you were responsible for?
Strive for progress, not perfection. Excellent advice. Really, I mean, it's a process, right? Okay, Anita, chime. By the way, folks, if you have a question, throw them in. We'd love to answer as many as we can. If we miss you, if we can't get to your question today, don't you worry. We'll get back to you personally. But Anita asks, she says, being specific works best for me. I can't figure out how to choose my New Year's resolution for 2024. What should I focus on that would have the biggest impact for 2024? So the biggest impact, this is Anita.
You know, Chris, that's without sitting down and having a discussion with Anita, it's really kind of really complicated. I mean, maybe Anita's a machine when it comes to real estate, but she's had no personal time. Or maybe she's a machine in real estate and she's done it at the expense of her health. Maybe she needs to do a little rebalance there. Or maybe she has been distracted with family commitments this year, which I understand are very important and a main priority in everybody's life. But maybe we haven't had the time to allocate towards our business or learning technology. It's too general of a statement. If she could write in some more specifics, personal, financial, business, I'd be happy to kind of drill down into any one of the categories a little bit. But to just give general advice, like how do I choose a goal? For me, I'm always trying to think of all of the things I wanted to accomplish with my life. I keep a running book from year to year, and I have short-term goals, things I need to get done in the next 90 days, and I have annual goals, and I have lifetime goals, and they rest in that calendar or in that list. And I can tell you, Anita, if it helps, once you create a materialized sort of visualization or you can attach to it, those items some way, somehow get stroked off my list. I did that, I got this done, I accomplished that. So I guess my answer to Anita is do the assignment that we sent you about setting goals in the different areas of your life. And if this is important to you, Anita, what I need you to do over the next few days as you're going through that assignment is I need you to think about what would you like to accomplish. Think of it this way, Anita. If you looked over your shoulder at the life you lived, what do you want to say about your business? What would you want to say about your family and your personal relationships? What would you want to say about you as a person, your journey in life? And what was it that you wanted to experience? We're all on a different path. We all have a different destination, or at least things we want to accomplish on our way to that destination. Let's put it that way. So I think it's important to know who you are and what you want to do. My goals in business have always been different than other people's, but they're my goals. I measure success differently than somebody else might. So figure out what in all of your categories, and then you got to figure out how do you mesh those together? How do you synchromesh those goals together so that they're not negatively impacting each other? You want to be so successful. Like, I'll give you a quick example. I managed an office for a broker years ago. And if you looked at them as a husband and wife or a family, you would have thought very successful, big house, big ski chalet. They had a yacht, fancy cars, all the trappings. They had two teenagers, and as a manager in one of their offices, I came to recognize the only time they spent with their kids was when they were representing them in court. Not because that the kids wanted for anything. The kids had everything except love and attention. So obviously they weren't a priority. Now I will say this: if you don't look after your kids, you're going to end up looking after your grandkids. So just food for thought. You want to invest the time in your children. Otherwise, you're going to be investing a lot of time in your grandchildren. So I say all of this. So figure out what you want, Anita, in all of those categories. Think about your life when it comes to an end. Will you have done everything you wanted to? This is how I look at it. And I know it's a little dark, but for me, there's things I want to get done and experiences I want to have and accomplishments, things I want to accomplish. And I'm working towards those. And I'd like you to do the same.
Excellent. That's such a thoughtful perspective, Chris. Thank you. And I think Anita is chiming back in here and said that she's going to send an email in. So great. We appreciate that. Anita, thank you. We'll work with that clarity. This is a different direction, Chris. This comes in from Randy. And Randy says, you say we should delegate, but money is hard to come by and everything has gone up. I can't bring myself to pay someone to do something I can do myself. How do I get over this hurdle? What do you recommend? Great question.
It's really good, Randy, and I appreciate you being so sincere. I think anybody who has, like me, raised in a family where, I had a working dad in a factory at one point and mom working as well, and money was hard to come by. You are taught certain attributes as a child when you grow up in that environment. Like in my case, for instance, I was told, make sure you finish all your food. There's people starving all over the planet somewhere and you got a full plate, that sort of stuff. So later on in life, I have a hard time doing proportion sizes because, you're taught that at an early age. So I agree with you, Randy. Money's hard to come by. And you know what? You can clean your own house. Why pay somebody to do that? You can cut your own grass. Why pay somebody to do that? If you live where I live, you can get a shovel out and shovel your driveway instead of hiring somebody to snow blow it. And we can continue down that list. The problem is, Randy, you're doing $20 an hour work. You're never going to make that 6 or 7 figure income if you're allocating your time to that. But I understand it's really difficult to make that transition. I will tell you this, Randy. You'll increase your intensity and you'll deliver more accurately and more effectively with your real estate career if you have an obligation or a commitment. So the fact that you're paying other people means you just can't go to the office and have a cup of coffee and shoot the breeze. Somebody comes in and wants to talk, you'd be like, time out. I'd love to talk to you. I got to make calls today, or I got to get a hold of my sphere today because I got to get another deal on the board. Why do I have that sense of focus and discipline? Because I got these commitments that I've made to people. You see, Randy, you get to take out of your business what you put into your business. And if you don't put anything in, you can't take anything out. So the more it costs to be Randy, the more Randy has to make. Randy, you're going to hate me for this. But when I was an office manager, the first thing I would do is talk my guys and gals into big fancy cars, because I knew once they were committed to a Jaguar payment or a Mercedes payment, they'd have to get up every day and sell houses. And the thing about this is once you get it going and you get that machine rolling along, it becomes normal, natural, and it's every day you're closing deals. So Randy, you're not going to, it's a little bit of a leap of faith here. But you got to go and hire people. And the same way you got to pay your utilities, your property taxes, your income tax, and your groceries is the same way you pay your landscaper, your cleaning company, and whatever else you're farming out. Because once you farm that out, you will rise to the challenge you give yourself. But if you create a lower barrier, you'll work less. You create a higher barrier, you're going to work harder to get over that barrier. Once you get in the habit of working this hard, Randy, it's really hard to stop. So you're going to, even when you don't have to anymore, you're going to keep turning it out. And that's how you end up with acquiring more and building that portfolio and setting up your finances.
Excellent. I'm going crazy here, Chris. I'm gonna try and squeeze one more question in. Tim, thank you for this question. He says, I have a good friend who's very negative. He's always saying the world is changing. It's changing for the worse. He doesn't have enough money. The economy sucks. He is just a dark cloud, but we've been friends for 40 years. Should I stop spending time with him? Quick answer. We're almost out of time, but I wanted to squeeze that one in.
I don't think so. I think that it's how you approach that conversation. Now, at the same time, you heard me say you hang out with the Eagles, not the Ducks. You get all of that. I understand that. And you have to limit your exposure to negative people because you don't want to adopt any of their emotional negative baggage. But at the same time, I always view these conversations as an opportunity to challenge my communication skill and change the way somebody's feeling. And I see this as an opportunity. Somebody presents interest rates as high. Well, I talk about how selection's gone up. Somebody says, there's no houses. I say, well, that's great if you own a piece of real estate because that means it's going to sell and the inconvenience level is lower. I mean, I could go on and on. If you give me a negative, I'll give you a positive. And I use those conversations as ways to refine and polish my skills. So I don't avoid them. I don't go looking for them, but when they come up, I don't avoid them. And I'm thoughtful about that to help me muscle up so that when I am sitting with people, that optimism comes out. So I'm all about the optimism.
I like that. Listen, if we didn't get to your question today, or if I simply missed it, my apologies. Be sure to email askchris@leadersedgetraining.com. Chris will personally get back to you. And remember, we'd love to have you review the material. You have until the end of the session next week. So lots of time to get back in there, get that dialogue, get those great little tidbits. Make sure you've got them down. Well, folks, I think that is a wrap for today's session. Chris, I want to thank you so much for your expert insight and your perspective. It's always spot on. And a big thank you to everybody that joined us as we wrap up this year, 2023. We look to the future. And listen, if you're looking to be your very best in 2024, please take this opportunity to look at our customized one-on-one coaching and support experiences. They're fantastic. Melanie, we put on the chat right now. You can get her on the screen right now. You can see it. Her phone number is there. Jot down that phone number, that 866 phone number, and check in with her. She'll walk you through the entire program, what's available to you. In the meantime, we're thrilled to have you a part of Coaching to Confidence. If you think it's meaningful and helpful, you think it might help others, please pass the word, coachingtoconfidence.com. We'd love to have others join us as well. So until next week, until next year, stay focused, stay optimistic, stay committed to ensure that your best years are, in fact, your next years. Thank you so much for joining us. And just around the corner, 2024.
How you move it, how you wind it up. We can jump into it, we can line it up.